The cold stars stretched endlessly across the sky, casting a pale light over the isolated human outpost on the edge of known space. The outpost was nothing more than a cluster of metallic structures, surrounded by craters and dust plains, yet it held a quiet significance. Here, humans had once communicated with far-off planets, traded knowledge, and maintained fragile peace. Now, most of that had been abandoned, leaving behind only remnants of old technology and memories of battles long past. Captain Elias Ward moved slowly across the outpost's rooftop, his boots clanging softly against the metal. Years had etched themselves into his face, lines of fatigue, loss, and regret. He had once been celebrated as one of humanity's finest warriors, a man who had stood alongside alien allies and fought to protect countless worlds. But the war was over, alliances had shifted, and Elias had vanished, retreating to the outskirts of the galaxy. Now, he lived quietly, repairing old communication towers, tending the solar collectors, and keeping watch over the barren plains. He had made a promise once, a promise to a being whose presence had changed the course of his life. The Zyrenian princess Lysera, radiant and fearless, had been his companion in the heat of battle, a warrior who led fleets with both precision and heart. They had fought side by side during the war against the ancient threat, an enemy so ruthless that entire star systems had fallen. Elias had saved her life during a devastating ambush on the planet Varelia, and she had sworn to return his loyalty in kind. But after the final victory, he had disappeared. And now, years later, he wondered if she even remembered him. The day began like any other, with Elias checking the damaged communication arrays. Dust and sand scuttled across the metal walkways, stirred by the planet's weak winds. He sighed, rubbing his temples as he tuned the frequencies, hoping for a signal that might connect him to the wider galaxy. He didn't expect an answer. The galaxy had long forgotten him, and he had chosen to be forgotten in return. But the universe has a way of reminding people of promises they think they've abandoned. A soft, high-pitched hum suddenly filled the air, unfamiliar and precise. Elias froze, adjusting his visor to examine the sky. In the distance, a faint glimmer moved against the stars, not like a regular ship or satellite. Its shape was elegant, unmistakably Zyrenian. The hum grew louder, resonating across the metal structures of the outpost. Elias's heart quickened. It had been years since he had heard anything from her. Years since he had wondered if she had survived the battles. The hum became a voice, carried through the old intercom system. Human, it said, clear and strong, yet tinged with emotion. Have you forsaken me? Elias froze completely, gripping the railing of the rooftop as the words echoed in his mind. That voice, no mistake, it belonged to Lysera. He fell silent for a long moment, memories flooding back. He remembered the heat of the Varelian battlefield, sound of plasma fire and explosions, the way Lysera had stood tall despite the chaos. He remembered the promise they had made under the pale light of Varelia's twin moons, a promise to find each other again, if fate allowed, and now. She was here. The sky grew brighter as more Zyrenian ships appeared, their sleek forms gliding through the void with grace and precision. Unlike human designs, their hulls shimmered like liquid metal, absorbing and reflecting the light of distant suns. Elias could see the scars on their surfaces, marks of battle, evidence that the princess had returned from countless conflicts. Elias rushed to the command center, activating the old holocom system. The flickering screen sputtered before a clear figure appeared. Lysera, standing aboard her command ship, the Eternal Flame. Her armor scratched but regal, her expression a mixture of determination and vulnerability. Her eyes, as sharp and piercing as ever, fixed on him. You should not have disappeared, she said, her voice carrying both accusation and relief. Do you have any idea what it meant for me to fight and survive, thinking you were gone? Elias swallowed hard. I thought you were dead, he said quietly. After the Varelia strike, communications broke down. I had no way to know what happened to you, Princess. I had to survive. Survive or hide? You left the galaxy wondering if the humans still kept their word. Did you even consider the consequences of abandoning a promise? Elias felt the weight of her words like a physical blow. He had chosen solitude, believing it was safer for both of them. Yet here she was, alive, commanding fleets, and carrying the burden of war on her shoulders. He realized that while he had protected himself, he had failed to honor their shared bond. Before he could respond, a sudden alert blared across his comm system. Sensors picked up multiple unidentified ships approaching the outpost at high speed. Ilias's heart sank. The Kral Dominion, an enemy faction thought defeated years ago, had somehow tracked her. The Zyrenian princess had returned, but danger was already closing in. Lysara's eyes narrowed. "They are here," she said softly. "And now, human, you will have to prove that you have not forsaken me." Ilias didn't hesitate. He grabbed a portable plasma rifle and ran to the defense towers. Years of training returned to him in an instant, his mind sharp, every movement precise. The outpost was old and poorly armed, but it would have to suffice. The sky darkened as the Kral ships descended, black shadows against the starlight. Their weapons glowed ominously, scanning for targets. The Zyrenian fleet opened fire in the distance, their lasers cutting through the void with deadly accuracy. Yet some enemy vessels had already broken through the outer defenses. Heading straight for the planet's surface, Elias activated the emergency shields around the outpost, rerouted energy to the turret systems, and began firing. Each shot was deliberate, each movement calculated. Despite the years of isolation, his skills had not dulled. Lysara watched from her ship as Elias coordinated the defense, her expression unreadable. She saw the bravery, the intelligence, the unwavering resolve that had once drawn her to him. In that moment, she realized something profound. Human courage was not just a story told in legends. It was alive in him. The first wave of enemy fighters hit the surface. Explosions shook the metal structures, sending sparks and smoke into the cold air. Elias's heart pounded, but he kept moving, issuing orders to the automated systems and using every trick he knew. Slowly, the enemy forces were repelled, their ships forced to retreat or destroyed. Lysara's voice came through the comm again. "You have not forsaken me," she said quietly. "Even now, after all this time, you fight for me. I should have known better than to doubt you." Elias, panting from exertion, looked up at the sky, where her ship hovered. "I never forgot," he said. "I only waited. I waited for you to return." For a brief moment, the galaxy felt still. The winds of the barren planet slowed, the hum of distant engines faded, and the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The reunion had begun, not with words of comfort, but with action, with courage, and recognition of a bond that time and distance could not break. As the last of the Kral fighters were destroyed or fled, Lysara's ship descended slightly, its landing gear touching the dust-covered ground. She stepped out, her armor reflecting the pale light of the planet, and approached the outpost. Elias met her halfway, his pulse racing, unsure if he had the right words, unsure if any words could capture what he felt. Lysara stopped a few feet away, her eyes scanning his face. "You are here," she said simply, though her voice carried more emotion than 1,000 words could. "And the galaxy will know humanity keeps its promises, even when the stars themselves seem to abandon them." Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. After years of solitude and regret, after battles fought and promises thought lost, he understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was wide, the threats numerous, and the battles far from over. Yet for the first time in many years, he did not feel alone. Lysara extended her hand. Elias took it without hesitation, feeling the familiar strength of her grip. The bond they had forged in war, tested by time and distance, was alive once more. Above them, the stars shimmered as if in approval. And the first part of their story, the reunion of human and princess, of loyalty and courage, came to an end. The galaxy waited for the next chapter, where battles would rage, secrets would be revealed, and the true measure of humanity would shine brighter than any star. The barren plains stretched endlessly, pale dust swirling around the human outpost as the Zyrenian princess's ship, Eternal Flame, rested on its landing gear. Captain Elias Ward could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Years of solitude, years of waiting, all culminated in this reunion, yet despite the relief, tension hung thick in the air. Lysara's eyes scanned the horizon. Sharp and commanding, though hints of fatigue lingered. Battle scars marred her armor. The marks of galactic wars fought far from this quiet world. Her crew had remained loyal, though whispers of doubt had filled the eternal flame during her absence. They wondered why their princess had returned to a planet considered insignificant by most. Why she insisted on confronting a human who had vanished when the galaxy most needed him. "Tell me." "Human," Lysara began, her voice steady. "Why did you disappear after the war? You promised to aid our rebuilding efforts. You promised to return. Did that promise mean nothing to you?" Elias met her gaze, feeling a pang of guilt tighten his chest. "I did not abandon you," he said quietly. "The communications were lost after the Virilia strike. The humans were ordered to retreat. I was cut off, alone, and I believed. I believed you were gone. I survived, Princess, but I never forgot you." Lysara's eyes softened for the briefest moment, though her expression remained stern. She had led fleets across galaxies, fought countless enemies, and seen the worst the universe could offer. Yet she had never stopped thinking of him, the human who had saved her life when death surrounded them both. Her voice, though calm, held an edge of emotion. "Perhaps you did not forget," she admitted, "but others will see your absence as betrayal. Even my closest allies questioned your loyalty. And now, we are not merely meeting as friends. There are new threats. The Kral Dominion has followed me here." Elias's jaw tightened. The Kral Dominion was a faction thought defeated, their remnants scattered across uncharted space. Yet the galaxy had learned in hard lessons, nothing remained defeated forever. Their presence here meant only one thing: the battles were far from over. Lysara turned to her crew. "Prepare the ships for battle readiness. Shields to maximum. Weapons hot. I do not intend to fight them lightly." The young officer, visibly tense, hesitated. "Princess, this human, can we trust him? He has been gone for years. The enemy will not wait." Lysara fixed the officer with a piercing stare. "This human fought beside me. He saved my life. If I cannot trust him, then I trust no one. Now, follow orders." Elias felt a surge of determination. Though he had been removed from the galaxy's conflicts, his mind had never lost the edge required for command. He moved quickly across the outposts, checking defense systems, recalibrating turrets, and rerouting energy to shields. Years of isolation had honed his resourcefulness. In a way, he had trained for this moment without realizing it. The first sign of Kral ships appeared as small specks on the horizon, accelerating at impossible speeds toward the planet. Their design was jagged and intimidating, black holes adorned with red sigils. Unlike the Zyrenians, the Kral lacked elegance. Their ships were brutal, practical instruments of destruction. "Elias, do you see them?" Lysara asked, her voice cutting through the cums. "I see them," Elias replied, "and we'll make sure they regret coming this far." The first wave of Kral fighters descended, opening fire with pulsing energy cannons. Sparks flew as their shots impacted the outpost's shields. Dust and debris were thrown into the air as Elias fired the turrets manually. Each shot a precise calculation aimed at intercepting the attackers. From above, Lysara's fleet joined the defense. Her ships moved in perfect formation, laser fire cutting through the enemy ranks with deadly efficiency. Yet even with their combined efforts, the Kral forces were relentless, pushing through with faster, more agile ships. One of the Kral ships broke through the outer perimeter, heading straight for the outpost. Elias did not hesitate. Using a combination of automated turrets and his own targeting skills, he managed to divert the ship's path, causing it to crash harmlessly into a nearby crater. Lysara watched, a mixture of admiration and disbelief in her gaze. Even after years of absence, the human moved with the precision and courage that had once made him legendary. She realized that while she had fought countless battles, it was his presence, his ingenuity, and his daring that inspired those around him. "Human," she said over the cum, "prepare for the Kral flagship." It's approaching fast. Elias's mind raced. The flagship was massive, bristling with weapons and shields designed to withstand entire fleets. No single ship, let alone an outpost, could confront it directly. But he had a plan. Using the planet's natural terrain, combined with his makeshift EMP devices, he could disable the flagship's systems long enough for Lysera's ships to strike. "Princess," said, "I'll need a diversion. Your fleet can lure the main forces into a trap while I handle the flagship's defenses. It's risky, but it's the only chance we have." Lysera paused, considering his words. Then, with the resolve of a seasoned commander, she nodded. "Do it, Inhuman. Do not die on me again." The plan unfolded with precision. Lysera's fleet engaged the crawl forces, drawing them away from the surface and into a controlled battle zone. Their lasers streaked across the void, creating a dazzling display of color and light as ships collided and exploded. Elias, meanwhile, activated the outpost's emergency devices, routing all available energy to a series of electromagnetic pulse emitters designed to interfere with the flagship's systems. The ground trembled as the EMP detonated, sending waves of energy rippling across the planet's surface. The flagship faltered, its shields flickering and weapons temporarily disabled. Elias used the brief window to target critical components, sending precise charges that would cripple the ship without destroying it entirely. Inside her command ship, Lysera watched, heart pounding as the flagship's systems failed. The Krall soldiers were caught off guard, unable to respond to the coordinated attack. The human Elias Ward was orchestrating the defense like a maestro. Every move calculated, every risk measured. Finally, with one last precise strike, the flagship's engines failed, and it drifted helplessly in orbit. Lysera's fleet moved in, disabling the remaining enemy forces and ensuring no survivors could regroup. The battle was over, though the planet and outpost bore the scars of conflict as the dust settled. Lysera landed near Elias, her expression unreadable. The hum of cooling engines filled the air. She stepped down, her boots crunching against the dusty ground, and approached him slowly. "You fought well," she said softly. "Not for glory, not for medals, but for me." Elias lowered his weapon, exhaustion and relief washing over him. "I never fought for anything else," he replied. "Even when I was alone, even when I thought the galaxy had forgotten us. I fought because I believed in what we promised each other." Lysera's eyes glistened. For years she had faced fear, betrayal, and death. Yet here stood a human, imperfect, weary, yet unwavering. She realized that courage, loyalty, and love could transcend time, distance, and even war. The crew of the Eternal Flame gathered around them, silence falling as they witnessed the reunion. Their princess, hardened by battle and burdened with responsibility, had returned not only to her people, but to the human who had once saved her. And in that moment, they understood that some bonds could not be broken, no matter the odds. Lysera finally spoke, her voice firmer now. "The galaxy is still dangerous, human. Threats linger.
Allies doubt.
But today I see that your courage matches any warrior I have ever known. Perhaps humans are not as fragile as the stories claim." Elias smiled faintly, the first genuine smile in many years. "We endure, fight, and sometimes we wait. Waiting is part of the strength you underestimate." The sun began to rise over the barren world, casting long shadows and painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. In that light, human and alien stood together, bound by past promises and future challenges. The Krall Dominion had been repelled, but they were far from gone. And the galaxy had yet to reveal all its dangers. Yet for the first time in years, Elias felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. He was no longer alone. He was no longer forgotten. And beside him stood the princess, who had never forsaken him. Despite the years, despite the distance, Lysera reached for his hand, the gesture small but powerful. "We face the galaxy together," she said. "No more waiting. No more doubts." Elias grasped her hand firmly. Together he echoed, and so the stage was set for the battles to come. For revelations that would challenge them, and for a bond that would endure far longer than the stars themselves. The human and the princess, once separated by distance and war, stood united, ready to face the galaxy and the weight of war side by side. The barren plains glowed under the pale light of the distant sun, but the calm was fragile. Elias Ward and Princess Liasara stood side by side, surveying the horizon as the Krail Dominion regrouped after their earlier defeat. Though battered, the enemy was far from finished. Scouting ships reported clusters of war machines moving through the asteroid belts near the planet. The galaxy's most dangerous faction had returned, drawn by the power and resilience of the Xyrenian fleet. Elias tightened his grip on the controls of the outpost's defense systems. The memory of their first encounter with the Krail still burned in his mind. The fear, the desperation, and the realization that victory required more than courage. It required trust, strategy, and unity. Now, with Lysera by his side, he felt a renewed determination. The princess had returned to him, and he would not let her face the enemy alone. Lysera stepped forward, her armor gleaming despite the scratches and dents from previous battles. "Human," she said softly, yet firmly, "we face the enemy together. You fight for our bond, for honor, for all those who depend on us. Are you ready?" Elias met her gaze, his voice steady. "I have always been ready, princess. Let's finish this." The Krail Dominion launched their assault at dawn. Ships streamed from the asteroid belts like swarms of black locusts, their weapons bristling with lethal energy. The Xyrenian fleet formed a protective wall above the planet, their lasers slicing through the darkness. Yet the Krail were relentless. They had learned from their previous defeat, employing tactics that tested both human ingenuity and Xyrenian. Lias moved swiftly between the outpost's command centers and turret stations, coordinating defensive fire and supporting Lysara's fleet. Automated drones and plasma turrets engaged the enemy with precision. But Elias knew that only a well-placed strike could turn the tide. "Princess," he called over the comm, "their flagship is deploying a new wave of drones to disable our shields. I need a clear window to launch a targeted strike. Can your fleet hold them?" Lysera's eyes narrowed. "We will hold them. Trust your plan, human. You've not failed us yet." The Krail drones descended, their energy beams hammering against the outpost's shields. Sparks and debris filled the air as Elias recalibrated turret angles, countering each strike with careful precision. For hours, the battle raged. Dust storms on the planet's surface mixed with the laser fire from orbit, creating a surreal and dangerous landscape. Then the moment arrived. Elias activated a series of electromagnetic pulses he had secretly installed in the outpost's core systems. The pulses disrupted the drone's circuits, causing them to collapse mid-flight. Seizing the opportunity, Elias fired a specialized missile designed to pierce the flagship's defenses. The missile struck true, igniting a chain reaction in the enemy vessel's core. The flagship faltered, engines stuttering as it drifted helplessly in orbit. Lysera's fleet surged forward, delivering the final blows to the remaining Krail forces. The sky erupted in a display of explosions and fire as the enemy ships were destroyed one by one. Yet even in victory, the cost was evident. Debris littered the surface. The outpost bore the scars of relentless bombardment. Amid the chaos, Elias spotted movement near the command center. A squad of Krail soldiers had managed to land on the planet, attempting to infiltrate the defenses. Without hesitation, he grabbed his plasma rifle and ran toward them, his every move calculated. Despite the danger, he fought with calm precision, neutralizing the threat before they could reach critical systems. Lysera, observing his actions from her ship, felt a surge of admiration. Years of battle had hardened her, yet Ilias's bravery and selflessness shone brighter than any Xyrenian warrior she had ever known. She realized that while humans were often underestimated, their courage and resourcefulness were unmatched when guided by loyalty and heart. During a particularly intense moment, a Krail artillery strike hit near Elias, sending him sprawling. His armor was scorched, and pain surged through his body. Lysara's voice cut through the comm's urgent and commanding. "Elias, Step back. I will extract you." Before he could respond, she had activated her ship's personal defense system, firing a series of beams that cleared the immediate threat. Descending rapidly, she landed beside him, her armor dusted with debris but unyielding. Without hesitation, she lifted him to safety, her strength and speed unmatched. "You should not have risked yourself," she said, setting him down gently. "The galaxy cannot lose you. Not now, not ever." Elias smiled weakly, brushing dust from his uniform. "I do what I must, and I do it for you, Lysera." As the battle reached its climax, the Kral flagship attempted one final maneuver, a desperate effort to break through the Zyrenian fleet. Elias realized that the only way to ensure victory was to activate a hidden EMP device near the enemy vessel's engines. It was a suicide move. The device's blast radius would endanger him and the outpost. Yet he had no hesitation. "Princess," he said, "cover the fleet. I'll handle this." Lysara's eyes filled with concern. "No, human. You cannot," she cried. Elias grasped her hand firmly. "I've waited too long to let fear decide. Trust me, as I trust you." With a deep breath, Elias activated the device. Energy waves radiated outward, striking the flagship directly. Systems failed, engines sputtered, and the massive vessel drifted, powerless. Lysara's fleet seized the moment, striking with coordinated precision to neutralize the remaining enemy ships. The Kral Dominion had been defeated, their forces shattered, and their threat extinguished. As the smoke cleared and silence settled over the battlefield, Elias collapsed to his knees, exhausted but alive. Lysera rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. She pressed her hand to his arm, checking for injuries, and then met his gaze. "You risked everything for victory," she said softly, her voice filled with awe, "and you did not falter. Human, you have proven that courage, loyalty, and honor are not defined by species, but by heart." Elias smiled faintly, fatigue weighing heavily on him. "I have always believed in our promise," he replied. "No matter the distance, no matter the battles, I never forsook you." Lysara's eyes glistened with tears, the first she had shed in years of war. She placed her hand over his, a gesture of trust, gratitude, and something more profound. Then this time she whispered, "I will never leave. Not you, not our bond, not this world we defend together." The outpost, battered but standing, became a symbol of resilience. Zyrenian and human alike witnessed the reunion of two warriors whose courage had altered the fate of worlds. Soldiers and officers cheered quietly, recognizing that this was not only a victory over the Kral Dominion, but a celebration of unity, loyalty, and enduring courage. Days passed, and the dust settled over the planet. The eternal flame remained anchored near the outpost, its crew repairing minor damages while Elias tended to the outpost's systems. Together, he and Lysera worked to restore communication networks, rebuild defenses, and ensure the safety of nearby colonies. In quiet moments, away from the repairs and preparations, Lysera and Elias would walk across the barren plains, speaking of battles, promises, and hopes for a future free from war. The galaxy was vast, and threats would always emerge, but they now faced it as one human and Zyrenian, bound not just by duty, but by trust, respect, and a bond forged in the fires of conflict. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the landscape, Lysera stood beside Elias, gazing at the stars. "The galaxy is full of dangers," she said softly. "Yet, with you by my side, I feel ready for anything." Elias took her hand, holding it gently. "We have faced the impossible before, Princess. We will face it again, together." Lysera smiled, her heart unburdened for the first time in years. "Together," she echoed above them. Stars twinkled like distant sentinels, silent witnesses to the courage of two beings who had endured war, separation, and uncertainty. The promise that had once been tested by time and distance now stood stronger than ever. The galaxy had seen the courage of humanity, the wisdom of Zyrenians, and the unbreakable bond between two souls, and as they looked toward the future. Side by side, both Elias and Lysera knew that no matter what challenges awaited them, they would face them as one human and princess. Warrior and leader bound by loyalty, love, and the enduring promise of a heart that never faltered, the galaxy, vast and dangerous, had met its match.